In September 1975, customers at a gas station in Boulder, Colorado, discovered a young station attendant fatally stabbed. The case went cold for decades after no charges were filed, even though there was a suspect. John Curtis Patterson was born on May 16, 1955. As the youngest of 7 children, John grew up in a loving and supportive household. John was a student at Ohio University, working toward a future still undefined, when tragedy struck in the spring of 1975. The death of his mother marked a turning point in his life. Grieving and disoriented, he made the difficult decision to leave school and begin a new life elsewhere. That decision took him far from home to Colorado, a place that promised both distance and distraction from his recent loss. To support himself, John took a job at the Cascade service station, located in the 4500 block of North Broadway in Boulder. Despite the personal losses he had endured, he appeared to be on a path toward stability. He had no reason to believe that danger was lurking just ahead. On September 29, 1975, an ordinary day at the Cascade service station took a grim turn. Customers inside the gas station grew concerned when they heard disturbing sounds coming from the restroom, what they described as the noise of someone vomiting. When they investigated further, they discovered a horrifying scene. John was found bound, bleeding, and vomiting blood. The shocked witnesses quickly contacted the authorities, prompting an urgent response from the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. The deputies arrived promptly at the 4500 block of North Broadway, where they found 20-year-old John dead in the restroom. John, who had been working as a clerk at the station, had suffered a fatal stab wound to the chest. As the detectives began piecing together the events, signs pointed to robbery as the possible motive. The cash drawer at the station had been left open, suggesting that money may have been taken. Additionally, 2 unfired .30 caliber cartridges were discovered on the restroom floor near John's body. These cartridges bore extractor marks and showed signs of light primer strikes, indicating that someone may have attempted to fire the weapon unsuccessfully during the attack. The investigation soon focused on 32-year-old Louis Jess Lucero, a man with a lengthy criminal record that included prior arrests for robbery, burglary, drug violations, and weapons charges. Lucero had been staying at a nearby motel, also located in the 4500 block of North Broadway, just a short distance from the scene of the crime. This proximity raised immediate suspicions, and the detectives began a deeper inquiry into his possible involvement. A search of Lucero's motel room yielded critical evidence. Among the items found was a .30 caliber M1 carbine firearm and a knife that matched the wound inflicted on John. Forensic examination revealed fibers from John's shirt, both on the knife and in its sheath. Additionally, hairs recovered from Lucero's boots were consistent with those from John's head. These findings firmly linked him to the crime scene and to the victim. Despite the compelling evidence, the case took an unexpected turn. Lucero was interviewed by detectives, as were many others connected to the area and the incident. Though he was arrested in 1975 for reasons that remain unclear, he was released before formal charges were filed. The decision to release him left the case unresolved, but the Boulder County Sheriff's detectives have continued to pursue leads and revisit the case over the decades, determined to find justice for John. Advancements in forensic technology would eventually breathe new life into the decades-old investigation. Utilizing the ballistics IQ device, the detectives were able to make a crucial connection. The 2 unfired .30 caliber cartridges found at the crime scene and those recovered from Lucero's motel room had been chambered in the same firearm Lucero's own .30 M1 carbine. This marked a major development in the case, offering modern scientific confirmation of what investigators had long suspected. To further validate the results, the collected evidence was sent to Evidence IQ, the manufacturer of the ballistics IQ device. Ballistics experts reviewed the materials and confirmed the match between the firearm and the cartridges. According to the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, this verification provided a significant breakthrough, lending strong forensic backing to the previously gathered physical evidence. Still, some elements of the case remain unconfirmed, leaving a few lingering questions unanswered. Despite these uncertainties, BCSO publicly stated that they possess significant evidence to indicate Lucero committed the crime. This assertion was grounded in the totality of forensic findings, eyewitness details, and Lucero's known presence near the crime scene. Yet any attempt to pursue justice in court was halted by a final irreversible development. Luis Jess Lucero passed away in 2024, nearly 50 years after John's life was ended. Following Lucero's death, the Boulder County District Attorney's Office conducted a final review of the case. In May 2025, they determined that there was proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Lucero had committed both the robbery and ended John's life. While this conclusion could not lead to a trial, it allowed the case to be officially closed. District Attorney Michael Dougherty remarked that had Lucero been alive, formal charges would have been filed against him without hesitation. The resolution, though delayed by decades, brought a sense of closure to the long unsolved case. For law enforcement, it was a testament to the importance of persistence and evolving technology in solving cold cases. In a public statement, Detective Don Dillard emphasized the agency's commitment to these cold cases, saying, "This is why the Boulder County Sheriff's Office spends time investigating cold cases like this to see if something was missed, and to see if with new technology, new leads can be found." The Boulder County Sheriff's Office wants the families to know their loved ones have not been forgotten. District Attorney Michael Dougherty said, "In our jurisdiction, we work very closely with law enforcement to secure justice for victims in our community. As this investigation by the Sheriff's Department demonstrates, the quest for justice is something we will always pursue. I am very grateful to the Sheriff's Office for continuing to investigate this tragic case and using new technology to provide answers for the victim's family and our community. Our office reviewed this investigation, and with this new evidence, we would have been able to file charges in this case." John's siblings put out a statement thanking the Sheriff's Office, particularly Detective Don Dillard. They said, "After so many years, we finally have the long-awaited answers and a sense of justice our family has hoped for." Larry Eugene Parks. In July 1980, a man's body was found dumped off Interstate 5 just south of Woodburn, Oregon. Labeled only as John Doe, the case went cold for decades. On July 18, 1980, a man's body was discovered along Interstate 5 south of Portland near Woodburn, Oregon. The discovery was made after someone contacted the authorities to report the presence of a body, prompting law enforcement to respond swiftly. Upon arrival, the police cordoned off the scene and initiated a formal investigation. The location near a stretch of highway in Marion County was remote enough to suggest the body had been deliberately left there away from immediate public view. As the investigation unfolded, the primary challenge for the detectives was identifying the victim. There were no forms of identification on the body, and the condition of the remains offered few immediate clues. Forensic examination revealed disturbing details. The victim had been drugged, was inappropriately assaulted, and ultimately strangled. These findings painted a grim picture of the final moments the man had endured before being discarded beside the interstate. Further investigation revealed a chilling detail. The body had been found in the same area where another victim had been discovered just one day earlier. This proximity raised immediate concerns for law enforcement. Similarity in location and the method of disposal prompted the investigators to consider the possibility of a serial offender. However, without knowing the identity of the victims, the police faced significant limitations in building any connections or profiling a potential suspect. Over time, momentum slowed. Evidence degraded, leads dried up, and public attention faded. Despite the disturbing nature of the crime, the victim remained nameless, and the investigation found itself at a dead end. Eventually, the case went cold. In January 2024, 44 years later, an investigator from the Orange County Sheriff's Department contacted the Oregon State Police Cold Case Unit with a new opportunity to revisit the decades-old John Doe case from 1980. The investigator offered specialized assistance using forensic investigative genetic genealogy. A preserved blood sample was sent to Paraben Nanolabs. Their scientists were able to develop a detailed genetic profile from the sample, something that had not been technologically possible at the time of the original investigation. This profile gave investigators a new starting point, allowing them to search for biological relatives of the unidentified man. Using the genetic data, the team began building potential family trees, narrowing down likely connections through shared DNA markers. As leads emerged, the investigators reached out to individuals who appeared to be closely related to the victim. Several family members agreed to submit their own DNA samples for comparison, hoping to finally shed light on the mystery of a long-lost loved one. The results confirmed a match. The unknown victim, referred to for over 4 decades only as John Doe, was positively identified as Larry Eugene Parks. His family had not heard from him since 1979, the year before his body was discovered in Oregon. They revealed that he was last seen alive in Pensacola, Florida, and had lost all contact with them in the time leading up to his disappearance. Larry was born in 1950. He attended college at some point, but his academic journey was cut short when he made the decision to drop out. It led directly to his draft into the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War era. Upon being drafted, Larry underwent training at several key military installations. These included Fort Hamilton, Fort Dix, and Fort Riley, each base representing a step deeper into the rigorous structure of Army life. Following his training, he was deployed overseas to Saigon, the heart of a turbulent and deadly conflict. Serving in the Vietnam War undoubtedly left a lasting impression on him. With the confirmation of Larry's identity, the investigators were finally able to close one chapter of the case that had haunted them for 45 years. With the mystery of his identity unraveled, law enforcement agencies are shifting their focus to the next phase of the investigation, uncovering who was responsible for his death. In May 2025, the police were able to identify a suspect in connection with the long unsolved case. Randy Kraft, infamously known as the Scorecard Killer, has emerged as the sole person of interest in Larry's death. Kraft, nearing 80 years old and currently incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison, has a long and violent history. He was convicted in 1989 for the brutal crimes against 16 young men, though the investigators believe the true number of his victims exceeds 60, spanning multiple states and years of calculated violence. The possibility of Kraft's involvement in Larry's death stems from several disturbing parallels. Kraft was known to target young men, often hitchhikers or those perceived as transient, luring them under false pretenses before drugging them, inappropriately assaulting them, and then ending their lives. Larry, last seen in Pensacola, Florida in 1979, fit the victim profile that Kraft had historically pursued. The method, drugging, inappropriate assault, and strangulation, mirrors Kraft's established pattern of violence. Kraft's crimes occurred primarily along the West Coast, including areas of California and Oregon, overlapping with where Larry's body was found. The proximity of Larry's crime site to Interstate 5, a corridor frequently used by Kraft, further deepens suspicion. Additionally, the anonymous nature of Larry's body at the time of discovery aligns with Kraft's known tactics of leaving his victims in remote or hidden locations, often without identification, making it difficult for the authorities to immediately link the crimes. While Kraft has never been formally charged in connection with Larry's death, the similarities are compelling enough for law enforcement to pursue him as a significant lead. The investigators are carefully reprocessing evidence, some of which had been collected over 4 decades ago, hoping that today's technology might extract new information that was once out of reach. While 80-year-old Kraft remains behind bars serving a life sentence, the renewed focus on his potential involvement offers a sliver of hope. The investigators remain determined to solidify the connection and, if possible, formally tie Kraft to the crime. Vivian Moss. In July 1981, workers in San Jose, California, made the discovery of human remains. Over 4 decades later, new advances in DNA technology would assist with a breakthrough. On the morning of July 11, 1981, workers were making their way along the train tracks on Monterey Road in San Jose, California, a location that today forms part of the Berryessa BART station's parking lot. As they moved through the area, their attention was drawn to something unusual in the grass, an object wrapped in plastic lying motionless in an open field. Curious and cautious, they stepped closer to investigate the strange bundle. What they discovered was beyond disturbing: the decomposing torso of a woman abandoned in the open, exposed to the elements. Alarmed by the gruesome find, the workers immediately contacted law enforcement. San Jose Police Department detectives were dispatched to the scene, and what they found only deepened the horror and mystery surrounding the case. Upon further examination, the detectives noted that the torso was missing its head, arms, and legs. The victim had suffered multiple stab wounds to the chest, indicating a brutal and violent attack. Whoever had committed the crime had gone to great lengths to conceal the victim's identity, mutilating the body and discarding it in a remote area. In the course of their investigation, the officers also found 2 religious pendants left with the body. These items raised more questions than answers. Were they a message, a clue, or perhaps part of some personal or ritual significance? With no head, no limbs, and no way to identify the woman, the police were left with very little to go on. Despite efforts to comb through missing persons reports, run forensic analyses, and interview potential witnesses, the investigation yielded no clear leads. The absence of critical identifying features made it impossible to determine who the woman was, and the case gradually went cold. In 2023, more than 4 decades later, a renewed effort to solve the decades-old mystery began when the district attorney's office partnered with forensic genealogists at Patterson Nanolabs. Using advanced DNA technology and genealogical analysis, Patterson began examining the limited biological evidence preserved from the crime scene. That same year, Patterson's research led them to a compelling hypothesis: the unidentified woman found in the field could be Vivian Moss. Following this lead, DA investigators began tracing potential family members of Vivian. In 2024, they located and interviewed her granddaughter. During the conversation, she recalled a moment from her childhood in the early 1980s that remained etched in her memory. Her grandmother Vivian had promised to pick her up for an overnight visit, but she never arrived. That night would mark the last time anyone in the family had any contact with her. This deeply personal account, paired with the genealogical data, led investigators to a breakthrough. Patterson's testing had successfully compared DNA from the crime scene with that of the granddaughter, confirming a biological relationship. With this evidence, the DA's office officially concluded in May 2025 that the woman whose torso had been discovered in San Jose in 1981 was in fact Vivian Moss. Vivian was born in 1927 in the state of Arkansas. At some point in her adult life, she made the move from Arkansas to the West Coast, settling in Oakland, California. She found work at a local elementary school and was also deeply involved in her faith. She was an active congregant at Mount Zion Spiritual Baptist Church in Oakland. After more than 4 decades of uncertainty, Vivian's identity was finally restored. Her family, long left without answers, had confirmation of what had happened to their beloved grandmother. With the mystery of her identity solved, the investigators from the DA's office are directing all efforts toward identifying her killer. District Attorney addressed the progress, stating, "One day soon, I hope we will know the depraved person who took her life and left her in a field, hoping she would be forgotten. If her killer is still alive, they will know that we do not forget in Santa Clara County." With this renewed commitment, the search for Vivian's killer continues. Christine Gallegos. In May 1985, a passerby made a chilling discovery in Utah: a young woman's body, lifeless and brutalized. For nearly 40 years, her family had no answers, just grief, silence, and the haunting question: who would do this? Christine Gallegos was born in 1967. By the time she turned 18, Christine was living in Kearns, Utah. She was engaged to a man named Troy, and the couple was making plans for a future together. On May 16, 1985, a passerby driving near 1384 South Jefferson Street, not far from the old Dirksfield area in Salt Lake City, noticed something unusual by the side of the road. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was a body and immediately contacted the authorities. The police responded quickly, securing the area and launching a full-scale investigation into what would become one of the city's most haunting cases. Upon arriving at the scene, the officers worked methodically to gather evidence and assess the circumstances surrounding the discovery. It did not take long for them to identify the victim as 18-year-old Christine Gallegos. The police investigators immediately began canvassing the area, searching for witnesses and anyone who might have seen Christine in the hours leading up to her death. Through their efforts, they learned that Christine had last been seen on the night of May 15th. Around 10:30 p.m., she had been hitchhiking to work on 4000 West in Salt Lake City. That would be the last time anyone saw her alive. She had been beaten, inappropriately assaulted, and ultimately fatally shot. Additionally, evidence at the scene revealed she had also been stabbed. The detectives concluded that Christine had fought back against her attacker with everything she had, but the attacker had overpowered her in a horrific sequence of events. Over the years, law enforcement poured immense resources into solving the case. The The Utah Bureau of Forensic Services and Sorensen Forensics conducted multiple rounds of forensic testing, hoping that advances in technology would yield a breakthrough. Despite their persistent efforts, however, no viable leads surfaced, and the identity of Christine's killer remained a mystery. As time passed, the case gradually grew cold. In 2023, nearly 4 decades after Christine's tragic death, her case was brought back into focus. With the support of Utah's Cold Case Review Board and the Utah State Crime Lab, the investigators re-examined the evidence, focusing on an unknown male DNA profile that had previously been entered into the combined DNA index system. The renewed investigation aimed to take advantage of technological advances that had not been available during the original inquiry. Through the assistance of the Utah Department of Public Safety's State Bureau of Investigation and funding, provided by the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative grant, the detectives sent preserved evidence to OTHREM in late 2023. The lab performed advanced DNA analysis using investigative genetic genealogy, a powerful method that combines DNA testing with genealogical research to identify suspects. The results brought a long-awaited breakthrough in May 2025. The analysis identified Ricky Lee Stallworth as the likely suspect. To confirm the findings, the investigators obtained a voluntary DNA sample from a member of Stallworth's family. The sample was a definitive match to the unknown DNA profile found at the crime scene. At the time of the crime in 1985, Stallworth had been a 27-year-old airman stationed at Hill Air Force Base. However, any opportunity for interrogation or further questioning ended when the detectives learned that Stallworth had passed away of natural causes in July 2023, just months before he was identified. One of the enduring mysteries of the case is the nature of the relationship, if any, between Christine and her killer. Throughout the original investigation, and even during the renewed inquiry, no evidence surfaced to suggest that Christine had known Stallworth. Her family and friends could not recall ever hearing his name, and there were no connections tying the two together. This lack of clarity leaves open questions about how their paths may have crossed and what may have led to the crime. The Utah State Bureau of Investigation issued a statement following the resolution of the case. They emphasized their commitment to justice through victim-centered investigations that hold offenders accountable while also acknowledging the limitations of their outcome. The statement read, "Handcuffs, however, do not equal healing." Though an arrest was no longer possible, the identification of Christine's killer was seen as a significant step toward justice and closure for those who had waited decades for answers. Christine's family has been formally notified that her case has been solved. While the resolution may never fully erase the pain of her loss, it has provided long overdue answers. Christine's mother, Lee, thanked the police for continuing to investigate her daughter's case, even when the trail ran cold. She said, "I did not know I was going to speak. I just know that I sure miss this girl every day. I wonder about the kids that she would have, and I watch other people with their daughters, their grandkids.